Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positivity here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He's wrestled all across several promotions around the world, and he's a rising star on the independent wrestling circuit. I'm pleased to welcome the one and only Jagger Lane to the podcast. Welcome, Jagger, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So you're from Utah. Tell me about your upbringing.
I'm actually from Utah, so I was trained by a guy named Steve Gatorwolf from the WWF years ago. And then also another guy named James Iona, who was actually one of the Islanders in WWF.
Oh, wow. Okay. So two legends right there.
Two legends. They both passed away, but God rest their soul. And then a man that I used to work for that was training with me and I was doing a lot of stuff with, which was Johnny Green from Hulk Hogan's Micro Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed away. God rest his soul.
Gone but not forgotten.
Definitely.
What was it about wrestling that just you wanted to get into it so much?
So I saw Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels and Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and I was hooked.
Yeah?
And from that moment, I was like 7 years old. I was like, Dad, I want to be a wrestler. Everybody was like, no, this is never going to happen. Well, I'm living my dream right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're killing it, wrestling from country to country, state to state, city to city. Who were some of your favorites growing up?
I would have to go with Owen Hart and Mr. Perfect.
Okay.
One of the top legends of the business. I mean, you learned a lot from them, and I still watch their matches here from this day.
What is it about their style that really speaks to you as a performer? And what was it about Owen and Kurt Hennig that just you're just mesmerized by their work? What is it about their style of wrestling?
Everything that they did, they were telling a story, whether it was a wrist lock, whether it was a hold to hold, whether it was outside of the ring or in the ring, whether it was a splash, whether it was the moonsault. No matter what they were doing, they were always telling the story, and you were hooked. You never wanted to keep your eyes off them because they were always giving you more, and you knew that they were going to give you more.
Yeah, and definitely it seems like they were painting a picture on the canvas essentially. And the thing about the 80s and 90s and even into the 2000s where you had guys like Owen, guys like Kurt Hennig, guys like Brett, Shawn, uh, just these technical workers that really, like, when you watch their matches, you couldn't leave your TV screen. You had to watch the ending and see what was going to happen next because they were putting on a show that people were going to say, man, see that match last night and I want to come back and watch next week because it was so good.
I mean, the wrestling nowadays is nothing like that. I mean, it gives you a draw, but you get bored sometimes just watching a match and you're like, what was that? It didn't give me a story. It didn't lead into anything. I mean, nowadays they're trying way too hard. It's not even, there's no buildup. Back in the day, you could see and feel, and you felt like you were in the TV. You can feel the capacity, you could, like you were in the audience. Now it's just like you don't feel that. There's no love. You could even watch Luke and Butchwhacker. The Butchwhackers coming out, they were telling a story, just waving their arms, and you were already hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like, you see these guys come out of the entrance and they'll get a pop, but there's no hook, there's no line, there's nothing, there's no old school capacity. Like, At least when Santino Marella came out way back in the day, he actually always had a draw because he was doing that walk.
And the Cobra.
Yeah,
That was
the
like a
Cobra.
signature move. Now you got trained, as you said, by Steve Gatorwolf and James Iona. Tell me what they were like to work with, and if you can, tell me about what your experience was like training to be a wrestler, because it's not very easy to be a wrestler.
So I learned old school. Like I wasn't even allowed to even enter the ring. So back in the day, we had to do hold the holds out on the mat. We had to bump in the ring when we were allowed to bump in the ring, but we had to do 2 hours before we could even get in that ring.
Oh
Some
wow.
of the times, yeah, some of the times we weren't even allowed to get in the ring. The only time that we were allowed to get in the ring was when we were bumping or when we were running the ropes. Other than that, everything was outside of the ring. It took about, I think, 6 months to almost 8 months before I was even allowed to enter the ring. And the only time that I was allowed to enter the ring was to run the ropes and then to take a bump. That was it. There was no other time that I was allowed to even enter the ring. So all these guys that are training now and working, they're privileged because they can walk into a wrestling school and they can literally get the opportunity to hop in at any point and train, or they can bump and they can run the ropes and they can learn shoulder tackles right off the bat. Me, back in the day, you didn't have that opportunity. You had to train old school, and old school was the only way that you were allowed to train. I mean, these guys were hard on you. They gave you drill after drill after drill, but they taught you the way they learned.
When you say old school, can you kind of elaborate? I imagine when you mean by that is that like you did like, your push-ups, your high knees, your crunches and all that different kind of stuff.
Actually, there was none of that back then.
Really?
Yeah, way back when, there was none of that. So it was like going to high school wrestling and shooting and doing shoot wrestling and just learning the holds and basically doing hold the holds and then like running the drills, running around the building about 20 times, getting your cardiovascular in. We were trained way, way old school, like so much in like 1999. That's when I first started training.
Goodness. So this was like not
This was
necessarily
like,
like not like developmental kind of stuff, but this is like before they actually put you in a ring, they had you basically spend a good 6 or so months basically doing like PT kind of stuff.
yeah, like, so it's basically like the Von Erichs
Yeah.
way back in the day, or like Stu's Dungeon. That's how it was.
Wow.
You weren't allowed to do anything. And I mean, all these guys, now they can walk inside a wrestling school and just say, oh, I was trained by this guy and lie and actually be a wrestler. There was a guy that I did a match with, and I thought he was actually trained by this guy that he told me. And so he was like, oh, I was trained by Pat Tanaka. And I was like, bro, I know Pat Tanaka. We were actually on tour together and
Yeah.
we are hanging out. And so I didn't get a chance to call Pat because we were doing the match and we are going over it. And the guy seemed like he could do it. And we hopped in the ring and live show and everything. It was a disaster.
Why do you think it
But,
became a disaster?
well, the guy said that he trained by this guy and he says that he knew what he was doing. And in all reality, he had no idea what was going on. So, but I mean, with a guy that's been in the business, and once you're a vet, you can actually take over and do basic stuff to still make the show look good. So if you put a guy in a hold to hold or do some body slams or whip him the ropes and do some splashes and just work him and keep working him and work his arm, work his leg, shoot him out a couple of times, you can literally make a cluster turn into a beautiful match and the audience will never know. unless they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like with music, if you're a piano player, guitar player, and you're kind of hitting those wrong notes and you're trying to play the right ones, the audience isn't going to care so much. But, eventually, like if you're starting to get good at it, keep practicing, keep working on it. I mean, it's going to make a whole lot of difference from the performer side of things.
Most definitely.
Yeah, okay. So they train so that you get trained in 99 and you're doing all this crazy, these crazy drills and exercises. What can you tell me about your first few matches?
So my first ever match was against a guy named Brick Alexander. And the crazy thing is, the guy that does the stuff for WWE right now, which is does all the video games for 2K, was
Mm-hmm.
actually Steve Eli, which is a
Oh,
Navajo warrior.
oh
Mike
wow.
Knox was there, and I didn't know this at the time because I didn't know who Prototype was, but Prototype was actually John
John
Cena,
Cena. Mm-hmm.
and I had no idea who this man was, but I knew exactly who Mike Knox was, Navajo Warrior was, and that was my first ever show. But I was in a squash match. Like I got to do 3 spots in my first ever match, just so I was actually known. Hey, you're ready, kid. And so once I did those 3 spots, my trainer turned around and said, "Okay, you work the crowd. The crowd actually loves you. You're ready. Let's start moving on to the next match." And then from the next match, I was learning more and more technical, and I ended up starting to know more and more about the business. I started learning more how to build my character, how to continue having my character feed to the crowd, how to sell more, how to draw the audience more to what I was bringing to the table. And now I know how to work a crowd.
And you're doing it all in a span of, you know, months to a year or two, and working with people like Cena and Mike Knox. I mean, that's gotta feel amazing.
So John Cena I only met once because he was actually getting signed to WWE. Nav, I see all the time. Mike Knox, I still talk to, really good guy. Love that man. He actually helped me out with my Impact Wrestling tryout and gave me all the guidelines for that when I went to go try out for Impact.
Oh, very nice. What was it like working for TNA?
Bro, that was amazing. Like I literally got to do some stuff and see some things that I never thought I would actually do. But I mean, it's just like being on the indies. Like you it's a bigger crowd, but you just learn different techniques from different workers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a mainstream promotion. You're getting that recognition. Any stories you care to share, during your time there?
I actually learned like so there's a lot of ribs that they play. So there's like a lot of guys are always like always late. So they'll always like be like, "Hey dude, you come with me," or "Hey bro, you were already with me," or there's like little things that they'll do and like play like little pranks, or we'll find little games to play while we're there, or just something to keep us entertained the whole time. But I mean, it's a blast, brother. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
having fun more on this indie scene. I love this indie scene. You get to interact with the crowd more, you get to interact with more people, you get to know exactly who they are. You build more of a friendship with people. um, you get to have fun with all these other people and just know more and more about them, and they know more and more about you, so you actually have an honest relationship with these people, and they have a relationship with you, so down the road more people get to know who you are.
Yeah, it's a very
And it's
intimate experience, and you get to, like you said, you get to work with a lot of people, and I'd imagine the schedule is a little more relaxing, laid back, a little more laid back than it is, working for a major company. But you get to be on the road with so many people, travel with your friends. You get to rub shoulders with some of the major names in the industry. Um, any stories of anybody you've gotten to meet while you're working on the road?
Um, I got to hang out with what was his name? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But I mean, if I had to say somebody, I would honestly say Pat Tanaka, even though that's not the name that was going to go off the top of my head right now. But Pat, like I love Pat Tanaka because I had to learn so many different things from him. Like we would do different techniques where you would sit there in a corner and waddle like a duck for from one way to another way, and it would just show you your ability to be on top of the ropes and everything like that. And he taught you old school as well. Like Pat, we played so many ribs on. I mean, we went to like McDonald's and got him a Happy Meal, and oh my God, he almost killed us.
Oh goodness. If you don't mind sharing, like what was the rib?
Oh, so we turned around and said, "Hey, this old guy is actually in here, and he's really hungry. Just whatever he orders, make sure you put it in a Happy Meal box." And they're like, "What?" And we're like, "Yeah, whatever you do, just put it in a Happy Meal box." And they're like, "We can't do that." And we're like, "We'll give you $100." And so we gave the coworker $100. They stuck all of his food in a Happy Meal box, and he was like, "What the?" Oh my God.
That's
Or there was
crazy.
times that we'd do shows and like they would put the other workers' gears on top of the ceiling. So we'd go into the building, we'd open all the suitcases, we'd start grabbing all their gear and grabbing their wrist tape, and we'd start sticking it on top of the ceiling. And then when they went to go open their bag, they were like, "Where's my gear?" And everybody was like, "Dude, we don't know." And then one day, one of the gear actually fell down. And so a lot of people started looking up and they realized their gear was actually out there on the top of the roof because some of the guys actually had to work in their street clothes and they're so pissed.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's hilarious. Only in
So we,
wrestling.
or the time that I actually got, I mean, this is like one of the biggest ribs that like they love playing on me. So I went inside the restaurant. We were in a restaurant called D's, and they started to walking out, and I was like, all right, well, I'll end up catching up to them. I look out the window and I see the car run going. So I run out, I slide because the floor is wet, I fall, and then I start running and they're like taking off, and there goes Mike Knox, John Cena, all the other guys. And I was like, oh my God, what the? So I'm over here chasing after the car. Man, so many moments.
That's great. I mean, but it's all about the camaraderie that you're sharing with these men and women that you're traveling with. And you need those moments because it can be very lonely out there, with what you're doing and you're away from your families, almost all year round. So you gotta keep things light a little bit, in times that are tough, really.
So the other guy that I was going to talk about was Hollywood Yet. I don't
Okay.
know if you know who that is.
I have never heard of him, no.
So he was actually in WWE for a little bit, but wasn't in there fully for a long time. But Hollywood, like he was actually Wolf from American Gladiators.
Ooh, okay.
A really good long friend, a really good guy that I still talk to from this day that helped pave the way for me. I mean, if it wasn't for him, Mike Knox, CC Star, um, so many guys. Um, I can't even think of this guy's name off the top of my head, but He's like pretty popular with WWE right now. And
LA Knight?
no, it's not LA Knight. He works with WWE still from this day. He was actually in UPW. He was one of the main guys, and we talked to each other off and on.
Goodness. I mean, is he still there now?
The last time I talked to him, he said he actually was doing stuff with WWE. So
I mean, a lot of guys came from there. I mean, Samoa Joe, Chris Masters, The Miz. No. Trying to think. Okay. There's neither of those guys.
no, he was in a company called UPW.
Yeah, yeah, that was the Rick Bassman's group.
That's exactly who I was actually trying to figure out the name, Rick Bassman.
Yeah,
I love
okay.
so a really good friend of mine, like we've never met each other face to face, but we text each other a lot and we talk to each other a lot. I love Rick. He's one of the most humble and amazing people on this earth. He looks out for everyone and cares for so many people.
Hmm.
And I mean, I wrote a post one day about my son being in primaries and fighting for his life. And Rick Bassman actually reached out to me and turned around and said, "Hey, man, I'm here for you anytime." And still from that day, Rick Bassman has never forgot about me. Just from social media, he reached out to me and gave me his personal number, and we became friends. Still never met him from this day. Like, I've never
Wow.
met him face to face, but I mean, talking to him and actually like turning around and um, just getting to text him, I feel honored.
Wow, that's a very touching story, because you're starting out with these people and he kind of helped give you your big break, in professional wrestling. And so the fact that you had just gotten the chance to really talk with him, haven't met him yet, hopefully that'll change perhaps after this interview. But that's a very heartwarming story, and that's something that we like to do on this show is provide the positivity. Now you've done a lot of charity work over the course of your career. Can you tell me about some of the organizations that you've partnered up with over the years?
So before I even started, I actually used to go to Make a Wish all the time and volunteer to help them and do things with them. I wasn't a part of the foundation, but I would sit there and volunteer my time as much as possible. And then back in the day, I used to help special needs children before I ended up having a little kid with a life terminal disease called Darvé syndrome, which is a sign of epilepsy where it causes them to have seizures. And there's a bunch of different minor things that go onto it that the list goes on. And it'll take like hours and hours and hours to lead into.
Goodness.
And we don't have the time for that. But I actually work with a foundation right now called the Mascots of Miracles. So it is every mascot from around the world. So if you ever see the Jazz Bear, the Utah Jazz Bear,
Hmm.
or if you see the Sonics Grizzly or any kind of mascot out there, they will fly out and they will turn around and be a part of this foundation. And so we ended up doing a charity show for all these kids that have lifetime terminal diseases. And we put on a wrestling show for them where they were actually the superstars and they came out and they actually beat up the mascots and actually had the wrestlers be a part of the show and we helped them perform. Something that's never been done in history, but we gave these kids belts and
Wow.
we actually got a lot of things done that they've never had, like show posters, trading cards, and I actually made a custom belt. And there's only two foundations in the world that actually have a belt in this for a foundation, and Owen Hart's is one of them, and that's in Canada because I've done my
Mm,
research on this before I actually done it. And the second one is the Mascots of Miracle Foundation.
wow. that's really cool that you were able to do all that stuff. I mean, having people from, these mascots, from different parts of the globe, I mean, going to help, a foundation and a cause such as this. I mean, that's it's really cool to see that, happen. And the fact that you're able to be a part of that and make someone's day, that's very,
Still
very
from this
amazing.
day, still from this day, I work with that foundation. I do a bunch of things with them. We just recently did a celebrity dinner where all these local celebrities would actually come into town, and we were with one of the guys from the NWA that came out, and he actually volunteered his time to be a part of the foundation to do the charity show for the celebrity dinner. And we all waited the tables and turned around and gave them the time that they deserve to show these kids that they matter more than anybody else in this world. Because what most people don't understand is these kids are fighting for their life every single day. We get to live a life that they don't get to live. We wake up every single morning getting to drive. These kids never even have the opportunity to drive. Some of them don't even have the opportunity to feed themselves. They have to have other people do, or even the opportunity to get up and walk. We get the opportunity because we're blessed every single day to wake up and do all this great things that they can't do. And for them to have that, I would give anything in the world to trade my life to give them my life one time so they could literally live my life and so
Yeah.
they can experience, because I never thought how hard it'd be until I actually had a son with a lifetime terminal disease. And now that I know that my son is fighting for his life every single day, I know exactly what those kids are going through.
When did you find out your son had the disease?
When he was 9 months old.
Wow, that's young. That's really young. Oh man, that's just devastating to hear. I mean, I'd imagine it's just very hard, to take that news in because, you're bringing a kid into the world and no one wants to hear that, this person could be on the verge of
What's
not,
brutal is when the doctor tells you that he only has until the age of 12 to live,
yeah,
and that he could go at any time.
it's heartbreaking. It really is because, the birth of a child should be something, positive and bringing joy. And I mean, to hear something like, for someone to live like such a limited life, uh, just having a certain amount of time to live. I mean, that's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, man,
Just,
it's not easy. Like, it's hard. So, like, we have to give him a special medicine every single day. We have to take care of him a certain way. We have to make sure that he's with somebody 24 hours a day, nonstop. He's supervised. I mean, it's it's really hard. And I
yeah,
mean, like, there's times that he'll sit here and be like, "Dad," and then I'll turn around and be like, "What?" And then he'll be like, "What's your name?" And then I'm like, "You just said my name." And then he's like, "I don't remember." I mean, it's brutal. It hurts, but you got to appreciate what you have.
yeah. I mean, you got to count your blessings as much as possible. Is he a big wrestling fan too?
He loves wrestling. Like, he beats me up and he'll be like, "Cha," and he'll be like, "Boom," and like he'll do little things. Let me see if I can find him real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
I love my little guy. So let
Oh,
me see if I can find him. Come here, buddy. We're talking about you. Say hi. Can you say hi?
hi. Hello.
Say hi.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Say good.
I hear you're a big wrestling fan.
Say yeah. Say uh-huh.
Who are your favorites?
He's not going to be able to tell you that.
Ah,
He will literally just repeat the same, maybe five, six things over and over again.
ah,
So, like I
yeah.
said, it's hard, man.
I understand, but I'm glad to see that, he shares a common bond with you and that he is interested in what his father does.
Yeah, I want to
And
show you something real quick since I'm
yeah,
on the podcast with you. So
sure.
this belt right here is the belt that got made for the foundation.
Oh wow. That's really nice. It's got
And
the
like I said, only Owen Hart's foundation and the Mascots of Miracle Foundation are the only two foundations in the world that actually have belts.
Yeah, I mean, that's really amazing that they're able to do that and having that legacy continue. It's got to mean something, I am just very sorry to hear that he's been going through this hard time. I just hope there's some way that with science and technology that they're able to cure what's going on because, nobody deserves to have their life cut short, especially with a disease like this.
I agree with you. But as of right now, there's nothing that they can do. They're still doing researches on them and still going through all the treatments and everything like that through all this. But as of right now, like any child that's ever had this has not lived past the age of 18. So, but they stated he only had till the age of 12. So,
Yeah, I just that's devastating to hear news like that. Very heart-wrenching. Um, but why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
I want to be different. I want to do it because I want to help other people and let other people know that there are people in this world that still care. There are people in this world that actually do love you when you should actually treat other people different. I mean, I've done so many different things for so many people that I've had random strangers give me a hug, random people start crying, random people turn around and just be like, I can't believe that just happened. What's going on? Like I was in a restaurant and I had a waitress spill all the drinks and food on me. And I literally got up, I started helping her clean, and the whole restaurant was in shock.
Really?
Yeah, they thought I was going to yell at her. I gave her a tip. We still paid. And I don't want to be I don't want to be any better than anybody else. We're all human beings. We're all trying to survive in this world. We're all trying to make a difference. And there's going to be a lot of people that don't give a damn about other people, but I don't want to be one of those people. I want people to know that I actually care about people. Because back in the day, if you would have met me, I didn't care about it, anybody but myself, man. I thought the pro wrestling world was about me, me, me. Until I had a little boy when I realized what was going on with his life and realized that his life was short, I had to appreciate everything that was around me. And since that time has happened, I've been so blessed with so many different things in this world that miracles just happen out of the blue. And I'm like, I don't deserve that, but thank you. I've been put on shows, I've had opportunities. I mean, I have booking after booking after booking with different promotions that are just going AWOL over me. I've had people turn around and be like, man, well, we're going to do TV spot. How about you come do this? And I'm like, well, I'm booked on this one. And they're like, man, we'll make you a champ. And I'm like, I already have this booking. I can't cancel it. I want to show these people that I care. but I want to show them that, we'll work together in the future if they still want to. But most promotions don't want that. Most promotions want you right then and there.
Hmm.
And if you blow them off, they're not going to give you another shot. But what's meant to be is meant to be.
For you, do you envision yourself working full time for a major promotion like a WWE, like an AEW? Is that something that you still want to do?
So the crazy thing is, I'm not chasing after WWE. I don't want to go to WWE. I'm not chasing after AEW. This is going to blow your mind. What I'm chasing after is my background, and that is to be in the Lucha Libre and be in AAA wrestling
Hmm.
and show other people that the technical people in this passion still care about this business and they're going after what they love and their race and everything like that to show them. Now, if I ever have the opportunity to go to TNA, I'd love TNA. I love Scott D'Amore. I actually got him to watch me do a tryout. He loved everything. I just didn't have that it. Whatever that it was, I still got to find from this day. But I mean, I would love TNA because TNA still has all that lucha moments, but AAA wrestling is where I want to be.
Well, I think the cool thing about, having all these alternatives is that it brings something new to the table. It's different from, your brawling style of wrestling. Promotions like a WCW and ECW really brought the cruiserweights and the lucha libre style of wrestling to America, and now Americans are seeing what so many people around the world have gotten to witness and love and cared about over the years, and that's just high flying athleticism, which is it's an art. I mean, wrestling is an art, and it's something that can be appreciated by many, many different people, but everybody's got different styles. I appreciate all different styles. I'm sure you do too. And so to see that, you want to go after the more high flying stuff, I mean, that's really awesome.
Well, it's not only that. If you watch Lucha Libre, you can actually see that they're telling a story to their
Hmm.
audience every single time, just like Owen Hart and Mr. Perfect and all the old school wrestlers used to do way back in the day. And if you still watch a Lucha Libre from this day, they're still telling a story that you can get drawn to. Whether you understand it or don't understand it, you still see that story.
Who have been some of your favorite Lucha Libre competitors?
I would have to go with Charlie Madsen, a really good friend of mine, Barrio Boy, which I love, the Latino Lover or the Latin Lover, Juventud Guerrero, which is a really good friend of mine,
Hmm.
um, El Torito, Microman, which I just got done doing a show with not too long ago. Love and respect that man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's unbelievable what kind of work that those guys can do in there, and to see you mixing it up. I mean, that's gonna be cool to watch. I'm looking forward to it in the
Bro, they tell a
future.
story. They tell a story like no other. And I mean, it's less wrestling and more comedy and more um just in it, and you actually see the story. The audience gets drawn to it. So if you watch like Rey Mysterio right now, he's telling a story every time.
Hmm.
I mean, like if you look at Carlito, he's telling a story every single time.
Were you ever a big fan of Lucha Underground?
I actually was. So a good friend of mine actually was on that, which was Martin Casaus, which was Marty the Moth, a really good friend of mine. I get to see him all the time. He's a good buddy of mine. We were on a couple of things together. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure something like that can be brought back because I think that was very popular, and I'd love to see more Lucha Libre style promotions kind of pop up in the US. So who knows what the future holds.
I mean, I work for two of them down here right now, and they tell me all the time, bro, you're booked always, no matter what. Like, I
Well, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you, and I just want to say thank you. It means a lot to me, to my listeners, and to my viewers on YouTube. Where can people find more about you on social media if they want to get in touch with you for a potential booking?
so I got a Facebook, which is under Scott Pineda, or if you type in Jagger Lane, and then I use Instagram quite often. So it would be under Jagger Lane, and then I got a YouTube that still needs to grow. And then I also work for a thing called House of Champions right now, which is based out of Florida, which is another performance center like the WWE. So they're the small next developmental in Florida, like the performance center.
Yeah. I mean, that's so cool that you're involved with so many different things. And again, thank you very much and best of luck. And you're more than welcome to come back on the show.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything. Thanks for the interview. Thank you for taking the time to actually do this. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. It's my pleasure. Have a wonderful night. I'll talk to you soon.
You have a great night. Thank you so much, brother.
You
Hope to
too.
talk to you soon. Bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.